We're now moving on to our final talk of the main symposium. And it's going to be one of my most anticipated events of the entire day for sure. This generative AI panel will feature experts from academia and industry discussing the future of Gen AI. But this panel is made possible by the sponsorship of Boston Consulting Group. So please check out this video introducing our sponsor.
We're not waiting for tomorrow. We're building it. With a multidisciplinary team of experts and advanced technology, we're redefining what comes next, creating bold new products, services, and businesses designed to multiply real impact. The future awaits. Are you ready?
All right, and now I'll introduce all the members of our panel one by one, starting with Professor John Hauser. John is the Kieran Professor of Marketing at MIT Sloan School of Management, where he teaches new product development, marketing management, and statistical research methodology. Next up is Kalyan Veeramatchaneni. He's the co-founder of Data Sibo, a company commercializing the synthetic data vault. The SDV enables the development of generative models for tabular data. And he's also the principal research scientist at the MIT Schwarzman College of Computing. And then the final member of our panel is Manoj Kothial. He's a core member of Boston Consulting Group's Consumer, Industrial Goods, and Operations Practices. He's the tech lead for BCG's digital and AI manufacturing platform, MFG AI, and leads BCG's proprietary supply chain network product, Snow AI. And finally, our moderator will be Mark Gorenberg, founder and managing director of Zeta Venture Partners. You'll hear more about them after the panel, as they're another one of our sponsors. He has 30 years of venture capital experience and has served on the boards of many successful startups. He's currently a member of the board of trustees here at MIT Corporation and a member of the executive committee. Join me in welcoming our panel.
Thank you. Alex, thank you. And so first of all, we should thank our sponsor, BCG, for this session. Manoj, thank you very much. And to the people here who helped put this session together, who should be acknowledged, Michael Looney will be using a lot of his questions as we start off. Bruce Lawler, of course, Regina and Alex for our panel. What I wanted to start off and just sort of frame this. You know, our firm started 10 years ago, and we purely invest in AI, B2B business models, and also seed and pre-seed companies. And back in 2013, when we started, that was pretty unusual. It was just coming off ImageNet, which was really the first neural network of some level of accuracy for looking at models. And the evolution of AI now has been larger than we could have ever expected when we started our fund. If you look at the models, I think that was 62 million parameters, and ChatGPT-4 is 1.8 trillion parameters. If you put that in perspective, I think the human brain is about 1 trillion synapses. So you could argue that it's twice a human brain, but that's probably more philosophical than anything else. In terms of research papers, since we're here at MIT, there were about 150 research papers a month back in 2013 when we started, and now there's about 5,000 AI research papers a month. And in terms of venture funding, the year that we started, about $2 billion a year in investment, and last year I think it was $120 billion. And it's not to say the fast-growing area, which is the nature of this panel, is in generative AI. And AI is the only area right now that's growing in terms of venture investing, which has been down for about 5 or 6 quarters in a row. So that's kind of a backdrop. We're all doing different things in what we're doing in manufacturing. There were some great sessions earlier today. We've been investing in a combination of infrastructure and apps. And in terms of those apps, one of our companies you heard about earlier from North American Stainless was Falconry, which we're first investors in using generative AI around predictive operations. But Verisign in inventory balancing and Rever in AI for ideas from frontline workers are just 3 of the companies we've done. And in terms of new areas in generative AI, we'll be talking about that on this panel, one of which, Kalyan at DataCibo, I have the honor of being on his board. But I thought that we would go around the panel and maybe talk about what we're doing and what impact it might have on manufacturing and operations as a starting point. So maybe Manoj, start us off.
Yeah, so I primarily focus on manufacturing and supply chain at BCG, and I sit at the intersection of data science and business. By experience, education, I'm an engineer and a data scientist, but helping businesses all over the years, kind of focusing on business a lot. With a lot of manufacturers, say focusing from steel manufacturers to CPG, FMCG, food service manufacturers, we are helping day in, day out, all these manufacturers to adopt digital AI and now generative AI, and helping across the value chain. That's what I focus on. And in the recent years, I think helping a lot using AI, deep learning, machine learning, all of those things. But in last couple of years, things have gone a step up. And how can we augment a lot of these AI machine learning models with generative AIs and can make the adoption faster, change management easier, has been the core key of the focus. So that's what I've been focusing on.
That's great. Kalyan?
Thank you. So yeah, I'm, as Mark mentioned, I'm Kalyan Veermachaneni. I'm a principal research scientist in LIDS at Schwarzman School of Computing, where I lead a group called Data AI. But probably most excitingly is that I've founded a company called DataCibo that's commercializing a software product called Synthetic Data Vault. So around 2015, we made a very conscious decision to follow non-language data, so which includes time series, signals, databases, any sort of industrial data sets. That's probably more relevant to this group here. And we tried to build generative models for that kind of data, and that created a whole bunch of challenges that don't exist for language. Language has other challenges, but this had different kinds of challenges, which we can get into. And that software system tries to build the models out of localized models for each industry or each domain, so you can actually download, install, and build a model. And then you can sample data from it, just as if it's a real data. So some of the situations where we use it for is trying to figure out to do simulations with it, scenario generation with the generative model, try to create data, and then look at reality as it's going on, give it some conditions and try to create data, and reality as it's happening, see if it's deviation from what the model is suggesting. And that actually creates an alarm or an anomaly that we can check. So there's a lot of usage of those generative models that we are building from this kind of data. Personally, I think I would say there was a question, what is the greatest impact you see? I think for the first time last weekend, I was able to write 5 LinkedIn posts and 3 Twitter posts and and schedule them.
I mean, using generative AI?
Using generative AI, I went to ChatGPT. I'm like, can you help me edit this? So it has been a big roadblock for me. I guess I missed the generation of creating tweets and LinkedIn posts, but I'm now able to. So that has been a big impact for me personally. So I used to write 1 tweet a month, so writing 5 over a weekend is a big deal for me.
John?
Hi, I'm John Hauser. I'm a marketing professor. The question, why is marketing here? I think I'm here because in marketing, we're using a lot of generative AI. For example, we're working with the auto companies to generate images that consumers will find aesthetically pleasing or aesthetically innovative. We're working with a lot of companies, if you're familiar with the House of Quality and other methods, to be able to get the customer need requirements almost automatically using customer reviews. And we're working with retailers to identify those items that will be returned by consumers. And that may not be a big problem, but in some categories, the average return rate's about 50%. With some items returned about 80% of the time. So if we can make a dent by not putting those products out there or putting out alternative products, we can have a big impact on profit. So what I think my input here is not so much the application area, I'm not a manufacturing professor, but rather the human element of when we're taking these generative AI models and dealing with marketing professionals or design professionals or product development professionals, how do we get those so that the users know how to use these items, and how do we design them so that they're usable? So with that, I'll let the manufacturing people talk about manufacturing.
Well, we can stay with you and come back.
Okay.
So outside of, we can all talk about ChatGPT. So outside of that, what do you think is the most significant advancement in generative AI? And how does that, we'll start with you, John, then. How does that impact the marketing work that you're doing? Is generative AI used in figuring out how to change the mix of products or things like that? Or how have you seen that?
At least in marketing, the big impact is the accessibility of generative AI now. You make it very accessible and get involved with the design teams. A lot of what we do is architecture the whole system, because if you know anything about design, it's a very human process. And if we don't have buy-in from the design teams, it doesn't fit into the standard way they think about designing products, it just doesn't work. They're just going to pretty much ignore it and not use it. So by understanding the people first, and then the capabilities, we can put it together. So I think it's more a people process rather than a single technical process that's most important.
Okay. Kalyan?
I think I'll say two things. One is accessibility, but in a different way. But the first thing is, I think the generative adversarial networks, I think, changed the ability for us to model data, complex data, not just images, but other kinds of data. And that has been one of the biggest innovation, and it's very intuitive to actually, if you understand the two neural networks competing. So that has allowed us to model complex data sets. The second, I think, is accessibility, but I come from a background of software. So I think being able to build a neural network, 15 years ago or even 10 years ago was very hard. And now a high schooler can actually build a neural network, put on layers together. So there's like tremendous amount of innovation in software packaging. Whether you use Keras, PyTorch, or any of the software packages. So we are now able to build models much faster, and then put API on top of it. So it's as much as of a mathematical innovation as much it is a product victory. I think productization of these techniques has become much more easier to do.
Interesting. Manoj, how has generative AI advanced the supply chain, change management you're doing?
So, we at BCG, we always say that technology and algorithm is 10 and 20%. There's a 70% which is change management. You can build the most fanciest model and think that that's going to work for your client. If the shop floor people, if the maintenance people are not going to be using it, it's going to go in drain. Right? That happens all the times. So, in my opinion, one of the best way of using generative AI model is accelerating that change management. So if you go to shop floors, people are still using pen and paper and writing a lot of observations every day. There are tons of paper trail which is being created, not digitized. Even if they digitize it, it's not structured. So being able to comprehend and convert that natural language into more structured data at a real time, and then combining it with the structured data coming out of sensors, and then being able to suggest the next best move. How do you set your lines of the machines at a different set point in the real time to optimize for the production, I think is the biggest boon. Now, we are talking about people. I work with a person in one of my manufacturing organizations that has been doing maintenance for last 40 years, right? This guy has a plain mobile phone with buttons. He doesn't use touchscreen phones. So his digital acumen is not very high, right? But he is very good at what he does. Now, if I tell him that, hey, look at this dashboard. You have to go to this computer, look at the dashboard, try to consume this insight information and take action accordingly. I don't think he's going to be doing it, right? But what if he's able to talk to the system and get the information in the same way, can type some query and get what he has to do instead of figuring out the metrics and charts and insights and whatnot. So in my opinion, the change management has accelerated a lot, which is the biggest boon to a lot of these manufacturing organizations where people are not digitally savvy. And we can definitely augment whatever machine learning, AI models, and all we are doing with this very simple application.
So to follow up on that, to do all of that, to add sensor data in with the structured data, natural language data, do you or do your clients have to change their architectures? Have you been working with them to change the stack that they're using?
Yes. So one of the biggest thing I think, or the most important thing for any of the manufacturing organization is security, IT security, cybersecurity, because the threat is directly to their physical assets. If you would have seen some of the famous videos on YouTube where they show you that you can send a code to a machine and machine can burn itself in next 5 minutes, and that asset is worth millions of dollars. So that is the most sensitive thing right now. How do we do all of this thing without compromising, without jeopardizing the IT security, cybersecurity? I think calls for a lot of change in the tech stack. Now, we can build a model, can give it to them, they can run it offline, can implement the solution, but that you end up spending a lot of time. Now, to be able to do that, especially with, let's say, a generative AI model, right, which, let's say, trained by Google, right? Now, we need to figure out what would be the tenant cloud technology wherein you are getting the latest snapshot of the model, but not sending back your stuff to the Google, let's say anyone else, right? Now, there have been such structures, such tech stacks available where you can remotely get the latest and greatest, can train your model, can execute your model, but you don't have to send your information back. That has been within your cloud security, within your physical security. That is the most important factor and has helped our clients adopt this thing. Otherwise, getting or adopting latest technology, forget about Gen AI, even before that has been always the trickier task. And I think some of these technological advancement in how do you separate out the system, separate out the clouds has been boon.
Interesting. Kalyan, on synthetic data, I know you're starting with testing as your first application. How do you see that proliferating? I mean, it would feel like that's one of our biggest advancements right now in generative AI itself.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for this particular domain in manufacturing and operations is that you have very localized data. So you have signals coming from turbines or cars or satellites, what have you. So it's not going to be that we run a generative AI model or learn a model on stock market data and commodities data and try to use that for this, or have a thin layer on top of the existing model and try to learn that. I think data is very, it's not a universal data set. It's very localized for every enterprise. So one of the things that we do with Synthetic Data Vault is that we are able to learn a model that's very local to the business, that ingests their data and then try to learn a localized generative model. There's good side to it that you don't need that much data, but actually in many cases, for example, if you have satellite, they have 10,000 signals, or if you have turbines, they have many, many wind farms. So you can actually, you have enough data to learn a reasonably, really good model. And then you can use that model locally as well. So I think one of the challenges I see here that the synthetic data technology or the technology that builds the generative models on this type of data it will solve is lack of availability of universal data. So see, language is universal, like English language. There's two things. One, it's universal, so all of us follow the same rules and sentence structures. I make a lot of mistakes, but everyone follows. The second is there's universal availability of that data. Like you can just scrape as much data as you want, and that's why we are able to successfully build such models. No such thing for manufacturing and operations. No such universal availability of enough data from turbines or cars or signals that we're capturing. So I think that's the problem that we are able to solve. And once we solve that, one of the big things that people have used those models is to sort of identify, as you said on the floor, the operations folks identify if generative model is saying that under this condition, the machine should be behaving like this, but the machine actually behaves slightly differently. So you can now say, well, there is some deviation. Can we flag this as an anomaly? And we have gotten really better and better at it. The better the generative model is, the better we are at not flagging false positives or showing false positives. The second situation is you can optimize that generative model. You can use that model to optimize either the control settings of the device that you're controlling, or you can try to test out various scenarios. Historically, they used to be built, these models, but they were built using, at GE, when I worked at GE in 2005, they used to have an entire team of computational fluid dynamics to actually dedicated to build a model for GE90 aircraft engine. Right? That was like the state of the art. That model was protected, and millions and millions of dollars of investment went in building those models, and human expertise went into that. Now we can actually take the data from the signals and build that model, and recreate those signals as if the flight is happening, or whatever device you're modeling, as if it's happening.
Interesting. John, beyond creation of text, are there other marketing applications that you're starting to see through design, whether that's campaigns or other ways that marketing is being generated automatically at this point?
Oh, absolutely. If you think of the way the human brain works, we process visual images and textual information to two parallel systems. And it's much more effective doing that. So a lot of what marketing is about the visual. So, for example, if we say, look at what's being posted on Instagram, we can actually mine Instagram to pick up a brand's image by what people, if they tag it, the image, and they tag Instagram, they tag the brand, we can tie that together and come up with essentially a brand image as it's changing over time. What's interesting, you think of event analysis, where an event happens and you want to go back and see what happened. You can do that. The Twitter feed is there. So, something, say, comes out bad about General Motors, or Elon Musk says something, you can go back and you see how the change happened over time. The other issue that I was struck by Kalyan's comment was this whole idea of big data and little data. I mentioned the ability to generate aesthetically pleasing images of cars. Cars are very complicated items, and images of cars. We trained the model on 80,000 images of cars, but only 203 images that were tagged as aesthetically pleasing or not. And each one of those tags comes from what's called a theme clinic, where the auto company is spending about $100,000 to get consumer feedback, but yet it works. And that's the thing we're also seeing with ChatGPT and some of the others. It's called zero-shot learning. Somehow it works, even though it's been trained on a lot of data. You give it a little bit of data to retrain it, and then it somehow works. And I don't think anybody truly understands that yet. Or maybe they do, but I don't. So
probably works like humans do, right? Where we'll come up with an idea, it's probably flawed. We'll come up with another idea. Eventually, we'll get one that's right.
Well, I actually was talking to some students about that today. If you think of what ChatGPT does, it just predicts the next word.
Correct.
And it does it probabilistically. But somehow it feels human. And my worry is maybe that's what we as humans do.
Yeah, we predict what's going to happen
Predict the next word.
So,
Can you predict what I'm going to do?
No, I can pick what I'm going to say next. If you give me a sentence, chances are I can complete it.
Okay.
And then if you give me a sentence, I might get the last two words.
Right.
But if you
There's a lot
give
of
me
structure.
a lot of structure of the way you talk, maybe I can pick it up, particularly if I'm an AI.
okay.
So,
Well, then we can move on to that. What do you think the biggest challenges are in using generative AI for practical? Well, we'll start with you and we'll come back. Yeah, for practical applications.
human understanding. How do we use it? How do we interact with it? It's not magic. If you've played with any of these things, you get a lot very quickly. But then if you push it too far, it sort of gives you the same old stuff again and again. And so, we hear about prompt engineering. Well, figuring out how to ask it questions, and figuring out how to bring it into, from my perspective, into how the marketing works. But you have all this expertise, human knowledge, and manufacturing. I would imagine it's exactly the same thing. How do we bring it into that human knowledge that we're not going to lose?
Yeah, prompt engineering is the new data scientist, I suppose. Not quite. Okay. Challenges, Kalyan?
I think it's in that spirit as well. I think with language, there is, when ChatGPT generates language, anyone can assess it. You may disagree with it, or you may not like it, or you may say, well, this is vacuous, or not. You can assess it. But in the signals and in the manufacturing space, the signals and industrial data sets, if I create artificial data, like, how do you look at it and assess if it's realistic or not? And especially if I create 10 signals and a structured database alongside it. Adding language is great to that, but the problem with adding language is that there's a limited amount of language when they're commenting and writing reviews on the devices they're monitoring. So a lot of that comes from the end users' inability to assess directly if this is realistic, should I trust it or not? So I think trust is going to be a lot of problems. Like, we would not, we don't trust ChatGPT itself. I asked about myself, it said I had won 10 different awards. I could trust it, but, but I did not. I know the truth. Okay. I know the truth that I did not win any of those. But there, at least I can assess it right away, looking at it. But if I show you a signal, a high frequency signal, how can you assess that it's actually doing creating the right signal?
Yeah. Interesting. Manoj, how do you see that? What do you think are the biggest challenges?
Yeah, see, a couple of things. Number one, balance between learning locally versus learning from outside. If you are learning locally, you might be going for a local optimum in terms of your set point settings in your machine, versus if you are learning from outside, then comes accuracy, precision. How can you trust that, right? Or developing this synthetic data and other stuff. A lot of things around responsible AI, ethics. A lot of challenges around, as I mentioned earlier, cybersecurity, right? And then I don't think, some of us want to believe that it's a magic wand, it will do everything. Can you create a next deep learning model for me? Believe me, you have to build your model. It can either give you a start, or it can help you to augment it to the next level or refine it. It's not going to build it for you. So those things, and then if we start using these more and more in organization settings and all, we have to do a lot of organization redesigning. The operating model is going to change. There will be new roles, new departments. There will be new policies, all of that. And then skill sets are going to change. All the job descriptions are going to change. So this is one automatic next step. And I was reading an article, and it truly said so that generative AI is 100% hallucination, right?
Yes.
There is no fact checking. There is nothing behind the scene which is checking whether what it's producing is correct or not. So if some people think that we want to use it and want to rely on it 100%, then it can lead to a lot of problems. So how do we set up a human layer or another layer of fact checking and quality checking on top of whatever it's been telling us or helping us with? It's not going to be useful until then. And we have to use it with a very, very caution. I think the ideal way is going to be a combination of machine and humans together. Alone machines are not going to be able to predict everything 100%. As you mentioned, that it's just generating the next word because it learned from a lot. But if you start feeding it something wrong, it's going to ultimately get something wrong because people tweet a lot of wrong stuff every day. And if it learns from that, then it's going to automatically give you the wrong answer.
I'm sure, one of the things that the first session that opened up this morning was looking at the McKinsey work that was being done with MIMO. And one of the things they talked about, the challenge of 2023 is coming up with ROI numbers. So now we've gone from Okay, so the challenge was we didn't have enough talent. Now big companies, especially the leaders, have talent, but the next generation, now we're 2 years later, it's a combination of saying we don't have enough data. I mean, I actually do believe synthetic data will help with that a lot. We don't have enough data, but we also can't figure out an ROI. So we've done some initial cases, but to really get a lot of budget put forward, people want to know what the return is. So why don't we start with you?
Yeah.
What are you seeing in that regard? Are you able to start to prove ROI? Do you have an idea of how to go about it?
So this has been a constant challenge, right? It's not a Gen AI challenge. It has been the challenge of digitalization, adoption of AI and machine learning. It has been a challenge every single time. Now, how can we overcome that challenge? How have we overcome that challenge in regular digital and AI machine learning spaces? To start small, to look at the low-hanging fruits with higher value. Can we do something so that it pays for itself? And we have, and I'm sure that others as well, have developed stuff which has clear ROI and paid for itself. So that's the way to go, instead of you putting all the dollars and thinking that after 2 years, 3 years, I'll be able to see some ROI, some strong ROI, and I'll be able to get all of my money back. I don't think it ever work like that. It's going to work like this. I think the idea is that, hey, can I do something in next 6 weeks, 8 weeks? And it can pay me back for my next 1 year of investment.
I see.
So that's how it works. That's how it's going to work in Gen AI space as well. And I think one of the lowest hanging fruit for manufacturers is, in my opinion, clearly digitizing all of that paper trail and being able to show a solution which is helping your, let's say, shop floor people, and let's call it a shop floor companion kind of a solution, or maintenance companion kind of a solution, which is telling you what to do next in the real time, combining all of this information. And I personally believe this is easier to make. It's not very tricky, and I think you can start seeing the value. You can cut down number of people you need for a given task, and those people can do something better for sure, right? And you can start seeing some value. I mean, think about one small thing. None of these machines are working 100% of hours because there are unplanned downtimes happening. There are planned downtimes which are not planned well or optimized for. There are machines which are running at not accurate setting or not optimized setting, despite of the fact that we provided the optimum setting for a particular situation. So all these things can be, I want to say, closer to be 100% optimized for, and you can start saving a lot of money, and it can pay for your next couple of years of investments.
And is there a framework that's starting to come together for figuring out ROI, or is it just too early?
Say that again?
Is there a framework that's starting to be put together to figure out ROI, or is it too early?
I think we already have a bunch of things in parallel working for across industries, and we have already been experimenting some of this stuff with our clients, and it has shown some early signs of success already. So the framework exists. Now the point is, some of these clients are way behind in their digital journey, especially in manufacturing setup and all. This is very different from, I would say, marketing, or let's, for the lack of other example, let's say retail world and all, where you have loyalty card and they are sending you offers like every minute, every hour, very, very relevant offers. Manufacturing is slightly behind. It's good on automation and other stuff, but adoption of digital and AI has been slightly behind. So I think we are still trying to cover some of that and trying to augment it already with Gen AI.
Right.
So there are those frameworks, but they are slightly different for manufacturers as compared to the other sectors.
So yeah, manufacturing will look at ROI more from cost savings, I assume.
Yeah.
But marketing probably as much from revenue increases. Are they?
Well, I'm not so sure. No, I mean, we're kind of focused on profit. You think you advertise, or you're trying to say, how much sales do I get by how much versus how much it costs me to get there. But I'm not sure that ROI is the right focus. I'm thinking more Black-Scholes Morton, option value. And let me expand upon that. I used to run a center on the research of management and technology. And one thing you hear from technology managers is options thinking. I mean, they can't run a Black-Scholes, Merton type model on this. But what they're trying to do is they're going to say, we have an idea of things we should invest in, and some of these will pay off, and some of them won't. And let us come up with sort of an option value, if it pays off, what's going to happen. I would suspect venture capitalists think that same way. What is the option of getting into this? So now let's back up to what my primary job is, and that's professor. If I'm not in this as a professor, I can't teach my students, and the students are our product. So we want them to be aware of not what GPT-4 is doing, but when GPT-20 comes around, or whatever, they know how to operate with respect to it. And the only way they can do that is if we force them to get into the generative AI now when it's very nascent. And if I were running a manufacturing organization, I would be playing with all kinds of things. So let me just make one more comment. 2 or 3 years ago, we were using CNNs. They sort of look for patterns, so edges or whatever, and nobody uses CNNs anymore. It's all transformer models with self-awareness. We even used to use GANs, a lot of generative adversarial networks. We don't use those anymore. We've moved over to transformers. And that's within 2 or 3 years. So where are we going to be in the future? If we're not understanding everything we can about transformer models, we're not going to be set for what really is going to break open, in my case, marketing or manufacturing. So it's option values, not ROI.
So basically, yeah, that's interesting. I Manoj made that point. You're basically making that point that this is now about trying to build for the future and the importance of investing to build for the future rather than trying to think about near-term business ROI.
It's about bringing knowledge into the organization about how to do AI or how to use AI.
So just sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to add, like, I mean, it's a tricky though, because that was what ML's argument was, that we should incorporate ML as knowledge, or there is investment that we should as an organization. And a decade later, I think it hasn't made a lot of inroads in many of the traditional sort of manufacturing or businesses, other than advertising, search, but there has to be some balance to that, I feel like.
Well, if you're not into ML, you can't absorb AI.
What I mean to say is, like, ML had the same argument 10 years ago, saying that you need to start investing in this technology, but it didn't make a lot of inroads still.
I think I disagree. Again, I don't know manufacturing. I do know marketing, and I do know that we were playing with machine learning back in early 2010s or whatever. And at least MIT is way ahead of the rest of the field now in AI because we had a deep knowledge of machine learning. And it isn't that different. Mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. It's matrix multiplication. It's all this. It's we've got that capability. So it's investment in the human capital of knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, just want to add that I'm a data scientist as well as a business guy. As a data scientist or a marketing guy, I definitely want everyone to use it, adopt it, make it bigger, and feel like that they are going to the next level. But when I sit with the C-suites and all, what they care about at the end of the day is, especially in these scenarios, is bottom line, right? And what happens is that what wins ultimately is the use case, not what I can dream of. And if the use case can actually move the dollar needle to some extent, 1, low cost to implement, 2, and then number 3, scalable, because they are not just going to be doing it here. And now people have started thinking about that, hey, if you are building it for me and I can use it, can I also sell it to others? Mm-hmm. Monetization, right? Mm-hmm. So every single time we are having this conversation, we are not just thinking about learning or going to the next level. We are talking about how do we make money out of it ultimately. So the use case discussion, we do a lot of workshops with our clients, and we discuss tons of use cases. And what happens at the end of the day is that one use case wins, and we start working on that, or maybe 2 or 3, and then in parallel, and then want to go to the ROI ASAP. If we are able to showcase the ROI, then we have an open, I want to say, budget to work on other stuff, and that's wherein we start doing something more experimental and slightly which has higher risk, higher reward kind of a setting. So that's how it rolls in our world.
Well, it is true. In the session earlier today, Everett talked about at NAS talked about was an interesting anecdote in the Q&A that because workers on the factory line were starting to help their kids with their homework with ChatGPT, that now they were much more acceptable with the idea of AI being brought into their factories, which I found to be fascinating. It's sort of this concept that this fall with ChatGPT, basically AI crossed the chasm, that it went from just early adopters and those people over there to now everybody feeling they have to move to it.
That's true, because I think it's the first time where, from kitchen tables to boardrooms, everybody's able to feel and touch AI. I think it has changed the perception. And in our conversations also, ROI conversations have become much more direct and targeted. If we focus on a use case, I agree with
you're seeing it directly. What are you seeing for ROI?
So a lot of times what we are seeing is first use case, and then figuring out if that use case is scalable, that many repetitive ways we can build the models across the organization. The biggest thing we are seeing is like boring work, like it's taking out boring work. So I'll give you an example. Like we use synthetic data, generative models to create data for software testing. And in software testing, there's a lot of manual data generation. So you write a new logic in the software and you want to test that logic. So now you will write data cases to actually test if that logic is working according to your need or not. So what we are doing now is we are creating that data artificially so they don't have to manually write it. So previously they had a choice. Either they would not write it and let it fail in production, the software system, or now they will write it. It will take a lot of time. With synthetic data or generative model, they're able to synthesize that data. And the first thing, the first time I heard, this was 2 weeks ago, I think I had to talk about it multiple times. We had the calculation that it saves 5 full-time engineer efforts for every release. Then suddenly it takes out the boring work that I do. So it's one of the sort of essential, that actually is going to happen a lot more. And now people are more accepting, at least in certain use cases, and trusting and saying that, okay, let's adopt AI. Previously, it was more also with classical ML, it felt like it was trying to compete. There was already systems in place to do certain things, like whether you're trying to predict who to give loan, then you have actually a system and a workflow to decide how to give loans. It was trying to compete. In generative AI, the proposition itself is augmentation. It's not actually starting at the lowest level and trying to take out the boring work. So there's actually a possibility to improve productivity and give people time back, while at the same time there's general acceptance. I feel very confident with this than I was with classical ML. I didn't mean to disagree, but I was saying that with classical ML, there was a problem we had for a decade.
Well, I think
in non-advertising marketing.
Classical ML had a marketing problem. Right? It overpromised. But I'm not sure where I draw the line.
I've heard that before. I'm going to put that down.
Is a CNN or an RNN classical, or is it AI? Is regression classical, or is it, where do I draw the line? It's been more continuous. And it's just, what's scary for
marketing problem.
Yeah, what's scary for a professor is it's happening so fast. I ran into a student I had in class at the break, and I said, I'm not sure I'm going to be teaching this class 2 years from now, because GPT might be able to do it. So we're going to have to learn something new to do, and that's scary for a professor, because I like teaching what I know.
Well, some professors are saying you can't use it, and some professors are mandating it for use. Which side of that do you fall on?
I didn't mean that. There's a big issue we're talking about the school. we've come to the conclusion that we have to train our students to be able to use GPT, because once they graduate, they're
Yeah.
going to be using GPT.
Yeah.
So that's a different issue than what I was talking about. I teach a course called Listening to the Customers. And at least in consumer goods and things like that, where there's a lot of data, it's almost there to replace interviewing customers, which is a very expensive, time-consuming work. And I actually, fortunately, founded a firm and sold it, so I don't have to worry about it if it goes belly up anymore. But our primary business is voice of the customer and interviewing consumers.
Yep.
And at least I'm still talking to the manager, and they're really trying to say, we have to understand all this new technology, because we're going to be out of business if we don't do that.
Interesting. Anybody have a question that they want to ask before we wrap up? Oh, we got two over there. Let's do them. It's an easy place to put a mic. They can pass it to each other.
So I guess my first question just is around ChatGPT. Like if I think back to kind of the history of chatbots, right? When Eliza came out in the 60s, it freaked everybody out, was maybe a little bit less accessible than ChatGPT was, right? But it had clear limitations, and at least for me, having read about it, the scariest thing was just how much it fooled people, right? And so we've had technologies that have passed the Turing test for a while. How capable really is ChatGPT, or is it just is it just an enhancement on Eliza that's, continues to pass the Turing test? And should we be wary of people almost having too much trust in it, accepting what comes out of it as fact, or at least, maybe people who don't understand the back end as much, just putting their trust in it to make decisions when, it can really be wrong. And there's no indication that it's not like it gives you a confidence level when it gives you an answer.
Yeah, I mean, if I may start. So it is good enough that it is structuring the language in a way which you understand, and you feel like that there is a human being, so there is a trust which builds up automatically instead of you think that you're talking to a machine. I mean, in some situations, I feel like that if there is a human being sitting behind and typing the answer. But what I personally don't like it, and it ended up happening a couple of times. I was presenting a funny fact about one of my clients. I was looking for it, and I asked ChatGPT to write a real life incident about my client. And it came up with a story which sounded very, very real with all the facts and all, but it was like totally fake, 100% fake, because I did the fact checking after that. So the problem here is that it will look 100% accurate to you unless you start checking the facts. That's important. If it matters to you, you have to. And that, in my opinion, is not happening anytime soon. It's not going to be 100% accurate and precise. Now, if you want to check, hey, what color of tiles will go with what color of wall and countertop, it will give you an answer as similar to some of your friend will. So that's fine, you can go with that. But if you are putting something important on it to answer, you have to do the fact checking, and that's not going away anytime soon, in my opinion.
Anybody else want to weigh in? No?
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the other big problem with ChatGPT is I think it's learning from online conversations and everything. And we know very well that there's tons of conversations that are not online. So what it's giving is a very biased view of the world. I mean, some of my students, I tell them, don't trust the blogs. That's what they're writing, and I write blogs too. There's an agenda that we are pushing indirectly, not directly and blatantly. The more crafty we get, we are pushing an agenda. So I tell students, don't trust the blogs and all that. Now I have another problem. Somebody is now able to summarize the same blogs in a way that's accentuating what they're pushing. So that's another big problem. There's a lot of conversations that our society runs on that's not online. And so it can never learn from that. So that's the big problem. How do we avoid accentuating what already is online that has an agenda, if you will?
Unless it ties back with the Apples of the world and Alexas of the world.
Or uses your Gmail.
Yeah, and start
Or
listening and
learns from your Gmail. Then Gmail knows a lot.
yeah,
So.
for sure.
Gmail does know a lot.
Two things. One is a lot of what I spend my time doing now is looking for what we call ground truth, something that is known so we can test an AI against it. And in terms of customer needs, ground truth is the old process of doing lots of interviews and surrounding that. And let me tell you, trying to take a set of 100 customer needs in customers' words and GPT, how do you match those up, right? There's an ordering problem, which is unsolvable, et cetera. So it's not trivial. The other thing, let's get back to what a GPT is doing, is taking a word, it's making it into a number, something called an embedding. And all it's doing is it's taking a series of numbers and predicting another series of numbers. Okay, I don't know if prompt engineering may be old school now, because you can go to a GPT and you can have it create an embedding.
Yeah.
It acts like a prompt.
Yeah.
You take the human out of the loop. So now it's all in numbers.
It's all auto.
Right? So, we may have had a whole profession created and destroyed in 3 months. I don't know. It's just total generation. But it really, all it's doing is transforming numbers now. And it just seems very real.
Was there another question there? Or, okay, I think you'll be our last question.
Oh, great. All right. So I'm listening to podcasts and discussions and articles. I mean, the key discussion now is what type of jobs are going to be reduced or displaced. And there's one school of thought that the routine work is going to go away. But Kayan, you just said, as a thought leader, you're able to compose a LinkedIn post that you would struggle with before. So is that routine work, or is this, and you just said you might not be able to teach your course in a couple years. So these don't seem like routine work. So what type of work is going to be reduced the most in the next few years on that spectrum?
Well, let me just take this. I may not be able to teach the course I teach now 2 years from now. But I do want to get paid, so I will be I will be teaching a course 2 years from now. But it may be a very different course. And it may be more exciting. I don't know, maybe less exciting. I actually am very optimistic that, like almost any technology we've ever had, there's going to be a lot of opportunities as long as we put the effort in to learn the technology.
Nope. Anyone else?
Oh, I think for me, that was more like I didn't do that work. I used to do it once a month. And that too, I was depending on someone else to help me edit a little bit. I have editors that I know work with. So now it has just allowed me to do something that I couldn't do before.
Yep.
And also on video, I acknowledge that I use ChatGPT for my tweets. So
That's not good.
that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, just want to add a thought that I personally don't believe that it's going to take away any job. It's like everyone will be able to do more.
Yeah.
And because it's going to be accessible to everyone. That's the whole point, right? It's not that it's just only with you and me and we can reduce other jobs. So the point is that how can you do more and then get time for something better, for the betterment of everything and everyone? I think that's the right direction it's going to go to. But what the kind of jobs it's going to create are also going to be tremendous amount. And are going to be more around right policies, right ethics, putting that human layer on top of whatever ChatGPT is doing, putting another ChatGPT on top of this ChatGPT, whether it is correct or not. So if you use it, you'll have to add other roles, and then people might end up going in those directions. But overall, the efficiency and throughput is going to increase, is how I believe.
So rather than answer your question and maybe to close out the panel, I'm going to respond to John's question, which is he going to be teaching this in a couple of years? And so I was a student at MIT in the 70s, and I had the honor of taking AI from one of the greats, which was Patrick Winston, who passed away a couple of years ago. And his exams were in the library with the answers. And he said, don't worry, the exams are in the library. The questions are the same every year. but the answers change every year. And I think that's where we're headed. You'll be teaching this class, but it's going to be very, very different. And I think that's true for all of us. So thank you all very much for attending our panel here today.
Thank you.
And thank our panelists.
To all our panelists. So before we wrap up, I wanted to give the floor to two more of our sponsors that you haven't heard from yet. Zeta Venture Partners, and then also the MIT Pillar Collective.
Let's see. You're very kind to, Alex, you're very kind to give us the floor. Am I still on? Or am I on this? Anyway, but I did give you a commercial when I started the panel. So just to say that we were the first firm to only invest in AI, B2B, and early stage, both infrastructure and applications. And so if any of you are looking to start a company, no matter how early, we'd be very excited to talk with you. So I think that's probably enough from me. Thank you. Oh, and there's a poster session coming up, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Hello.
Oh,
Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you.
It's Ms. Sandbox.
Correct. I'm the executive director of the Sandbox Innovation Fund, but here I'm in my capacity as the managing director for the MIT Pillar AI Collective, and I'm so excited about this program, which was launched just in the fall with a very generous gift from Pillar. And this all happened before ChatGPT craziness. So, because as you know, ChatGPT didn't just happen overnight. It's been in the making for many, many, many years. So to just tell you about the MIT Pillar Collective, it's a program that's focused on funding students, postdocs within research labs to get them to actually think about how to bring their research and commercialize it and accelerate that process. So with that, we funded a few projects in the spring, and I'm really excited about the summer because this is the first time we're going to have a summer fellowship focused on bringing students and postdocs that are going to really focus their summer activities on figuring out how to take their work, whether it's research work that's focused on the fundamentals of the tools behind the AI and machine learning, or on particular applications ranging from manufacturing to healthcare to materials, and then help them and support them through the processes of customer discovery and early prototyping. And for today, for this event, we're so happy to sponsor because we're going to pick a winner that's going to participate in the program. And hopefully, at the end of the summer, we'll have some great news and show some great progress for how to take the researchers and get them to really think about the challenges of taking their research and turning it into solutions that can make it to the market in a reasonable amount of time. So thank you, and I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you.